It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Joining me today is Lucas Smith of Locked On Cardinals. How you doing, Lucas?
I'm doing good, Sully. It's always a pleasure to talk baseball with my pal, Sully.
And today we're not going to be just talking about baseball, but on the heels of the Field of Dreams game, we're going to be talking about our favorite baseball movies. Here's why I'm sometimes not a great person to talk about baseball movies with, because I'm a huge movie fan, and I'm also a huge baseball fan, obviously.
Right.
But part of me is like, I'd rather watch baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would rather watch a game like tonight's game, which was wild and dramatic and had a Hollywood ending, than see a film that has a written Hollywood ending. You understand? It's like, What I loved about the game tonight was that it really unfolded that way, as opposed to a screenwriter coming up with it. And when I saw Rookie of the Year, I remember there was a moment when the final game when the Cubs were playing the Mets for the pennant, or so, I don't remember what it was. It was for, I think it was the division title, whatever it was. It didn't really make sense, but it's fine. It was a movie. They had to have the bad guy be New York because it's just a shorthand. And they had the kid slips and like hits his arm, and he realized it set his arm, so he can't throw it 95 miles or 100 miles an hour anymore.
Right.
And then it's like, oh my God, what do you do? I remember sitting in the theater, go, bring in another reliever.
Right.
I mean, what are you gonna? You're not gonna have a 10-year-old kid lobbing up there. They'll come in, say the umpire, the trainer comes out. Yeah, it's like this. Okay, bring in the right-hander. Come on.
Right.
That's a very easy solution there. And so, and I couldn't get beyond that. But
no, I think something about that movie too. Well, first of all, it's about the Cubs, so I naturally don't like that type of movie.
That's true.
But also in that movie, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, they try and pull off a hidden ball trick when he comes set on the mound and he's holding the rosin bag. And in my head, all I'm thinking, that's a balk. That's a balk. He can't do that, So I love baseball, but I also can't get past it. That's why my favorite baseball movie is The Rookie with Dennis Quaid.
Oh, that's a great movie. Story. That is a great movie. Absolutely.
Yeah. Obviously, it's changed a little bit for Hollywood purposes, but that's my all-time favorite baseball movie.
I saw that movie with a guy who is now a very successful TV producer. But at the time, we were both kind of struggling comedians in New York. We went to see it together, and we were sobbing at the end. And he's a huge baseball fan too. And I remember walking out. His nickname is Goldie. And saying, Goldie, I never thought I would be sobbing at a film about a Tampa Bay pitcher coming in a mop-up situation against the Rangers.
Yeah.
And we were laughing about it. I said, like, that's either a story about the strength of someone who refuses to give up their dreams, or it's a story about how bad the Tampa Bay Devil Rays were in the late 90s that they said, I don't know, let's let that high school teacher pitch. I don't know, we'll try anything. Nothing's working. Right. But Dennis Quaid, fantastic. Brian Cox, great movie. The guy who directed that went on to direct a much bigger hit, which was The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, which I don't think is nearly as good. Like, The Blind Side was 1,000 times more successful, right. And I thought The Rookie was a better movie. So
yeah, Rookie, one of my all-time faves. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about that for a second. What are your take on Field of Dreams? What do you think about the movie?
Yeah, I didn't know it was so contrasting until the last couple of days when people were on Twitter saying, "Oh, this is a terrible movie," yada yada yada. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen it in a while, but I have seen it recently enough where I remember it and I know it and I've watched it, right? I enjoyed it thoroughly because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, a sports movie is just going to be a corny feel-good movie. unless it's based on a true story like The Rookie or whatever. I thoroughly enjoyed.
And The Rookie's a feel-good story,
right,
and that type
exactly.
of emotions too. You
Right.
could have put Raging Bull, which is a true story, but it's supposed to make you feel terrible about yourself at the end. But no, you're right. Well, keep going.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, nevertheless, at the end of the day, there's enough in this world. There's enough critical movies to be critical about, to be negative about, to be kind of a buzzkill about, not to be too harsh with anybody, but the Field of Dreams is one of those classic movies to me that you can sit down and watch it with anybody. I remember watching it with my family for the first time, and it just brings about this feeling, like I talked about a little bit earlier, of what baseball's supposed to be. Bringing together families, and yeah, this was obviously a make-believe story of old people walking, or dead people walking in from cornfields. I get it, but it's still one of those movies that to me, when I think about it, brings up nothing but fond memories. I'm a big Kevin Costner fan of whatever baseball movie he plays in, because I've only ever seen him in one non-baseball movie, and that was Draft Day, still a sports movie. So I love him as a baseball guy, and I think he loves the sport. So when I think of Field of Dreams, I think of nothing but positive memories and nothing but positive feelings. I'm a big fan of the movie. I really am.
First of all, for Kevin Costner, you got to see The Untouchables.
Okay? The Untouchables.
The Untouchables. That's what made him a big star. With Sean Connery and Robert De Niro, and he was that. I love The Untouchables, but I digress. I like Craig Calcaterra, who's been a guest on this podcast a few times, hates Field of Dreams with the passion of 10,000 suns, and I've heard people criticize Field of Dreams, and I have intellectually understood the criticism. Right. I said, I totally understand. And I totally understand why someone wouldn't like it. Here's the deal. Here's why I love it. Okay. I love it because a film like that, to me, I can only judge about how I dealt with it the first time I saw it. Now, I saw it in the theater in 1989 when it came out. And even though I was going to the movies a lot at the time, this was an era of movie watching. First of all, 89 was a wild year for movies. Like, there was gigantic hit movies that year. Batman, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. There was Dead Poets Society. There was When Harry Met Sally. It was one of the biggest movie years of all time, because it wasn't just big blockbuster films, but there was also like big independent films and big documentaries and big art house films and big comedy. It was everything about 89 was just gigantic. And in the middle of it, there was this Field of Dreams. I knew nothing about the film when I saw it. I didn't know it was about baseball. I didn't know it had to do with ghosts. I didn't know it had to do with cornfields. I never saw a trailer for it. All I knew was Kevin Costner was in it. And Kevin Costner at the time was on an absolute roll, especially after The Untouchables and Bull Durham and No Way Out. And so he was just, everything Kevin Costner was touching at the time. Oh, I like Kevin Costner. And the poster was just a picture of Kevin Costner. I was like, oh, I'll go see whatever. And I saw it with my mom and dad. My mom, dad, and I was a senior in high school, but I was still seeing movies with my parents. The three of us went to see that movie with the three of us not knowing what we were getting into. Okay. And to be surprised by that film. If you build it, he will come. None of that was in the culture yet. So It was all surprising. And they go to Boston, and I'm from Boston. We were living in California, but I was homesick for Boston. And they go to Boston. They go to Fenway Park. And then they go bring up Burt Lancaster. I was a huge Burt Lancaster fan and a huge James Earl Jones fan. And baseball ghosts are coming out. And at the end, when he's playing catch with his father, I was blubbering, and my father was blubbering, and my mom was blubbering. And whenever I've seen the film, and I've seen it beginning to end a few times, and I've seen some of the faults in it over the years, but I'm always instantly transported to that moment sitting in a movie theater in Mountain View, California with my mother and father, being surprised by this movie. And I can't criticize the film because it gave me that. And in the essence, the film was designed for that first viewing. Just because it doesn't survive multiple viewings doesn't mean it's not a great. That's not necessarily what the film is about. The film is about how you saw it that first time. It's like seeing a magic trick, and then you show you how they're shoving the doves up their sleeves. But the first time you saw it, it thrilled me. And so I'm always nostalgic for how it, how I felt the first time I saw it. So
That's a great analysis of it. So I think that sometimes that's all you can judge a sports movie off of. Is that first time how it makes you feel? Because sports in general are such an emotional thing, brings up so many emotions in it. Because at the end of the day, it is just a sport. It's just a game, but it's a sport with meaning, and it's a sport with a lot of passion. And for a movie to bring that out in anybody, I think that's why I can go back and watch any sport movie over and over again. For example, The Rookie. I cry every time I watch that movie. I've got no shame in admitting that.
No.
It's one of the, that's more of a movie that you can watch over and over again. But I agree with your take on Field of Dreams that it is going to take you back to the first time you watch it, and just take it for what it's worth for this feel good movie about baseball that we can all love and appreciate. And that is what it is. And at that critique, at that level of critiqueness, that's even a phrase. It's a very, very wonderful movie.
And I don't want to ignore the fact that the Field of Dreams is a film about a father and a son, but I have a very close baseball tie with my mother, and that is amongst many other things. And we lived overseas for a few years, and I had all my mom's baseball books when she was a little girl. She grew up a very big baseball fan, growing up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, rooting for the Yankees, ironically. And when we were overseas, I just devoured all my mom's baseball books and became a baseball historian when I was around 8 or 9 years old. And just growing up, like, my mom would ask me to read the scores, and I would tell her I was her sports center as I was going down, like, what was happening.
That's
And
awesome.
I also know my mom's listening to this right now because she listens to every podcast I do. Hi, Mom. And so that I shared that film, which there was all this stories of baseball history, and his baseball historical figures were in the film. And I associate that kind of baseball history with my mom. So the fact I shared that moment with both my parents, made it really interesting. And of course, there are so many great things in the film. Like look at Costner. His peak was unbelievably great. He went up through a period of time where he just, everything he touched turned to gold. And that his performance in the film, I think, is underrated, because my dad had the best response when we saw the film, which was when we always talked about the film on the drive home. And I remember my dad saying that he loved the scene when he was first hearing the voice, and like the second time he was getting more and more frustrated. And he said, that's how I would have reacted. And it's one of the reasons why the film works for me, because that's how a person would really react. He would wonder, was he hearing something? He would get frustrated. And there is a naturality to his performance in the film. When he sees the ghost come out, he has to go to Boston, he has to kidnap James Earl Jones, he sees Burt Lancaster, all these different things happen. He plays it so straight and so real that if he played it like too broad or too silly or overly dramatic, it would not have worked.
Right.
There are some absurd lines in that film that work because of how he delivered it. Like when he says, that's my corn out there. You're a guest in my corn. And I mean, it's just a great line in the film. But, and he asks his dad for a catch at the end. I mean, he has such a ease to his performance that I think you can't give him enough credit for. He's one of the main reasons why they work. And I mean, the cast is great. Amy Madigan is great. Ray Liotta, James Earl Jones. I mean, the whole cast is fantastic.
Yeah.
But my favorite baseball film of all time is Bull Durham. And I did a whole, what's called a movie by minute podcast, where we broke down each episode we did, which is like 20, 30-minute long episodes, breaks down one specific minute of the movie. That's a whole genre of podcasts.
That's awesome.
They've done it for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all these big ones. And I did for Bull Durham. And I wound up loving the film even more, breaking down the minutia. And one of the reasons why I love why that's my favorite baseball film, is that it's the film that to me most resembles what rooting for a team is like. The team doesn't win the pennant. There's no big game at the end. In fact, the final game in the movie is a rainout. You only see the ending of one game. Like, there's no walk-off homer scene. there's in the middle of the movie, you see, when Tim Robbins throws a complete game victory. That's the only ending of the film you see at any point, only ending of the game.
Right.
And it's about the minutia. It's about the bus rides. It's about the details behind the scenes, and the fact that it's written and directed by a former minor league player, Ron Shelton, who played in the Orioles organization and was blocked by all the great Orioles of the 70s. So he was just stuck in the minor leagues all those years and wrote all of his experiences. His performance is similar, that it's very sincere and straightforward. And the love triangle between Sarandon and Costner and Robbins is one of my favorite love triangles in any movie. And so that's my personal. What your favorite is The Rookie, I'm gathering.
Yes, the Rookie. I mean, I grew up as a pitcher throughout high school and junior high when I first saw that film, and the way that he dug his cleats and into the rubber and just kind of had this serious look. I never really had that. I've always had kind of a baby face, so I couldn't really intimidate people like Dennis Quaid could. But I just remember falling in love and watching him interact with his kid and his relationship with his mama in that film as well. And just like the phone calls that he had with his family in the phone booth. How it was a baseball movie, but it was still kind of about his family. And again, I know that some of it was altered due to the Hollywood stuff like that, but still, you're going to find that with every movie, and it was still just a fantastic movie. And I think that I garnered a lot of my methods of how I pitch, the like I mentioned, just the grinding of the feet, the stare down of whatever on the mound I got from Dennis Quaid and The Rookie.
Yeah. I think it's my favorite. I mean, The Natural is a great one.
That's my grandfather's favorite.
Yeah. I love The Natural in that it's exactly what it wants. It's supposed to be heightened reality. It's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be a realistic film. It's supposed to be basically about mythology. It just happens to be a baseball film about mythology. Let's see. Bang the Drum Slowly is a great film. Sugar is a great movie. I'm in a movie called Spaceman with Josh Duhamel and Ernie Hudson.
Look that one up.
I wrestle Josh Duhamel in the film. I play a mailman who he attacks, and I wrestle him to the ground.
Awesome.
I was in the documentary about Bill Lee, the former Red Sox pitcher, and I was in a documentary about it. And then the people who made the documentary later made a feature, and they had cameos from people from the documentary, and I had a quick but pretty funny part as a mailman. But yeah, by the way, you go check every once in a while, you'll see a Locked On host pop up on HBO Sports. I appeared on the Curse of the Bambino and Reverse the Curse of the Bambino documentaries on HBO, and the wonderful documentary called 9 Innings from Ground Zero about New York in the wake of 9/11 features Locked On Yankees Stacey Gotsulias. So you can sometimes you go check out HBO Sports and you'll see someone from the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Lucas, that was really fun talking movies with you. Where can people follow you on social media and follow your terrific podcast, which is called Locked On Cardinals?
Follow me on Twitter at LJFastball. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Cardinals. And you can find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasting apps. Try Odyssey or Spotify, and also look for the show on YouTube.
Thanks. And everyone else, you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On MLB Pods. You can follow us at the same handle at Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about baseball movies with the host of Locked On Cardinals, Lucas Smith. This has been Locked On MLB for the 12th day of August, 2021. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.